to biology, the scientific study of life. Human population growth has slowed after centuries of exponential increase. As we have read, no population can grow indefinitely, and humans are no exceptions. We will apply the concepts of population dynamics to the specific case of the human population. The global human population, the exponential growth model in this figure approximate the population explosion of humans since 1650 hours in a singular case. It is unlikely that any other population of large animals have ever sustained so much growth for so long. The human population increased relatively slowly until about 1650, at which time approximately 500 million people inhabited Earth. The population doubled to 1 billion within the next 2 centuries, doubled again to 2 billion between 1850 and 1930, and doubled still again by 1975 to more than 4 billion. The global population now numbers over 6 billion people and is increasing by about 73 million each year. The population grows by approximately 201,000 people each day, the equivalent of adding a city the size of Amarillo, Texas, or Madison, Wisconsin. Every week, the population increases by the size of San Antonio, Milwaukee, or Indianapolis. It takes only 4 years for world population growth to add the equivalent of another United States population. Ecologists predict a population of 7.3 to 8.4 billion people on Earth by year 2025. Though the global population is still growing, the rate of growth began to slow during the 1960s. Presents the percentage increase in the global population from 1950 to 23 and projected to the year 1950. The annual rate of increase the global population peaked at 2.19% in 1962. By 23, it had declined to 1.16%. Current models projected a decline in the annual growth rate to just over 0.4% by 2050. This reduction in growth rate shows that the human population has departed from true exponential growth, which assumes a constant rate. These declines are the result of fundamental changes in population dynamics due to a disease such as AIDS and voluntary population control. Regional patterns of population change. So far, we have described changes in the global population, but population dynamics vary widely from region to region. In a stable regional human population, birth rate equals death rate, disregarding the effects of immigration and migration. Two possible configurations for stable population are zero population growth equal high birth rate minus high death rate, or zero population growth equal low birth rate minus low death rate. The movement from the first toward the second state is called the demographic transition, as shown in this figure. This figure compares the demographic transition in one of the most economical development countries, Sweden, and in developing countries, Mexico. The demographic transition in Sweden took about 150 years. From 1810 to 1960 in Mexico, the changes are projected to continue until sometimes after 2050, almost the same length of time. Demographic transition is associated with an increase in the quality of health care and sanitation, as well as improved access to education, especially for women. After 1950, mortality rates declines rapidly in most developing countries, but birth rates have declined in a more variable manner. Birth rate decline has been most dramatic in China. In 1970, In China's birth rate predicted an average of 5.9 children per woman per lifetime total fertility rate by 24, largely because of the government's strict one-child policy. The expected total fertility rate was 1.7 children in India. India birth rates have fallen more slowly. In some countries of Africa, the transition of lower birth rates has been dramatic, though birth rates remain high in most of the sub-Saharan Africa. Why do such variable birth rates affect the growth of the world's population? In the developed nations, populations are near equilibrium growth rate about 0.1% per year, with reproductive rates near the replacement level. Total fertility rates equal 2.1 children per female. In many developed countries, including Canada, Germany, Japan, Italy, and the United Kingdom, total reproductive rates are in fact below replacement. These populations will eventually decline if there is no immigration and if the birth rate does not change. In fact, the population is already declining in many Eastern and Central European countries. Most of the current global population growth, 1.4% per year, in concentrated in developing countries, where about 80% of the world's people now live. A unique feature of human population growth is the ability to control it with family planning and voluntary contraception. Reduced family size is the key to the demographic transition. Social change and rising educational and careers aspirations of women in many cultures encourage women to delay marriage and postpone reproduction. Delayed reproduction helps to decrease population growth rates and to move society towards zero population growth under conditions of low birth rates and low death rates. However, there is a great deal of disagreement among world leaders as to how much support should be provided for global family planning efforts. Age structure, one important demographic variable in present and future growth trends, is a country's age structure, the relative number of individuals of each age. Age structure is commonly presented in pyramids, such as those shown in this figure. Notice that. Represented for Italy, for instance, here, last one, the pyramid has a small base indicated. That indicated that individuals younger than reproductive age are relatively underrepresented in the population. This situation contributes to the projection of continuing population decrease in Italy. In contrast, Afghanistan, as shown here, notice that Afghanistan has an age structure that is bottom heavy, skewed toward young individuals who will grow up and may sustain the explosive growth with their own reproduction. The age structure for the United States is relatively even until the older post-reproductive age, except for the bulge that corresponds to the baby bottom that lasted for about 2 decades after the end of World War II. Even though couples born during those years have had an average of fewer than 2 children, the nation's overall birth rate still exceeds the death rate because there are still so many boomers and their offspring of reproductive age. Moreover, although the current total reproductive rate in the United States is 2.1 children per woman, approximately replacement rate, the population is projected to grow slowly through 25 as a result of immigration. Age structure diagrams not only predicted a population's growth trends, but they can also illuminate social conditions based on the diagrams. This figure we can predict, for instance, that employment and education opportunities will continue to be a significant problem for Afghanistan in the foreseeable future. The large number of young entering the Afghan population could also be a source continuing social and political unrest, particularly if their needs and aspirations are not met. In Italy and the United States, a decreasing proportion of younger working age people will soon be supporting an increasing population of retired boomers in the United States. This demographic feature has made the future of Social Security and Medicare a major political issue. Understanding age structure can help us plan for the future. Infant and mortality and life expectancy. Infant mortality, the number of infant deaths per 1,000 live birth, and life expectancy at birth. The predicted average length of life at birth vary widely among different human populations. These differences reflect the quality of life faced by children at birth, as shown in this figure. Contrasts average infant mortality and average life expectancy in the developed and developing countries of the world in 19, while these or in 20, while these averages are markedly different, they do not capture the broad range of the human condition. In 23, for example, Afghanistan had an infant mortality rate of 143, as shown here. 14.3%. By contrast, in Japan, only 3 children out of every 1,000 born died in infancy. Moreover, life expectancy at birth in Afghanistan was 47 years compared to 81 years in Japan, while global life expectancy has been increasing since about 1950. More recently, it has dropped in a number of regions, including countries of the former Soviet Union and in sub-Saharan Africa. In these regions, the combination of social upheaval, decaying in infrastructure, and infectious disease such as AIDS and tuberculosis in reducing life expectancy. In the East African country of Rwanda, for instance, life expectancy in 23 was approximately 39 years, about half that in Japan, Sweden, Italy, and Spain.